The movie opens in 1982, where a girl named Charlotte is seen attending a birthday party at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. She is alone, and waiting for her favorite animatronic, Marionette, to appear when she's approached by her friend, Vanessa. Vanessa invites her to hang out with them instead of sitting alone, to which Charlotte reluctantly agrees. While the others are busy having fun, Charlotte looks around, and is horrified to see someone in a yellow rabbit costume dragging a child into a back room. The panicked Charlotte approaches various adults and begs them to help the little boy, but they don't take her seriously and dismiss her pleas. And so, Charlotte decides to act herself, and even though Vanessa tries to stop her, she doesn't listen. Charlotte sneaks into a dark alley, and soon notices the man in the rabbit costume, whose name is William, doing some chores, while the boy is unconscious nearby. Charlotte thus carries the child and tries to flee. But then, William notices her and grabs a knife. Soon, Charlotte reaches the main hall, where she screams at the top of her lungs to make everyone pay attention. This wakes up the little boy, who begins running toward his mother, while Charlotte collapses onto the stage, revealing several deep wounds across her back. Just then, the trapdoor opens beneath her, and she falls in. Seconds later, Marionette emerges, and carries her lifeless body, horrifying everyone. Following the incident, an investigation takes place, during which authorities place the blame on Charlotte for her death, stating that it was her fault for entering a strictly off-limits area. Freddy Fazbear's Pizza is also shut down as a result, though a new branch in another location opens shortly afterward. The scene then cuts to 20 years later, where an adult Vanessa wakes up from a nightmare and notices her phone ringing. It turns out to be her friend, Mike, who asks if they're still on for dinner, to which Vanessa replies yes. After hanging up, Mike is teased by his little sister, Abby, who calls their dinner meeting a date, but he clarifies that they're just friends. Moments later, Mike's friend, Jeremiah, arrives at the house, so Abby excitedly chats with him before leaving for school. Jeremiah then helps Mike paint the house, and asks him to stay away from Vanessa, whom he believes is crazy. Meanwhile, Abby is on the school bus, and she excitedly tells her friends about the events of the first movie at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. She explains how she was attacked by several animatronics, but Mike and Vanessa saved her. She also mentions that the yellow rabbit was crushed and destroyed, though its body is rumored to still be in the abandoned pizzeria. But her classmates don't believe such wild stories, and some even call her crazy. Afterwards, one of her classmates asks if she went back to the pizzeria, and Abby says she wants to, but her animatronic friends are broken. Mike has promised to fix them, but she thinks he is just stringing her along. Later, Abby is in robotics class, where the professor, Berg, tells the students about a science fair, and urges everyone to finish their projects by Friday. It turns out an event called Faz Fest is happening on the same day, in which people celebrate Freddy Fazbear, but Professor Berg calls the event a waste of time. He then notices Abby working on her project, and rudely tells her to give up, saying robotics is not for everyone. However, Abby's classmate appreciates her skills, and suggests that she can fix her animatronic friends herself. That night, Mike is getting ready for his date, and asks Abby to help him tie his tie. She then asks if she can visit her animatronic friends in the pizzeria and fix them. But Mike refuses, promising that he will repair them soon, and advising her to make real friends in the meantime. Later, Mike meets Vanessa for their date, where he expresses worry about his sister. Vanessa also opens up about how difficult it is for her to move on from what happened, since she still has nightmares. To give a bit of context, the yellow rabbit, William, was none other than Vanessa's father, who was responsible for killing many children. He was eventually crushed to death in the first movie, but Vanessa is still haunted by her father's actions. Later, when Mike returns home, he doesn't find Abby anywhere, but finds a note saying she has gone to fix her friends. A panicked Mike immediately rushes to Freddy's Pizzeria to find his sister. This is not the original pizzeria, but the branch that was later opened, and Mike used to work there several years ago. He finds Abby sitting on the floor, watching the animatronics, but this time they are not moving. In the first movie, these animatronics were possessed by the spirits of children who were victims of William, and they were friends with Abby. She thus asks Mike where her friends went, and he tells her that maybe they are already in heaven. To cheer her up, Mike begins going through several toys to find her a keepsake, but Abby's attention is drawn to a toy called the Faz Talker, a device that allows one to record and play back voice. The siblings then proceed to leave, but outside, Mike notices a strange poster claiming that Freddy is a murderer, and there's even a phone number. After the siblings leave, we meet a group of content creators named Rob, Lisa, and Alex, heading to the pizzeria to shoot an episode of their horror show. Lisa reveals that a night guard who works there invited them, so they won't have to break in. Soon after, the trio arrives at the original Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, where Charlotte was murdered many years ago. They begin recording everything, and are suddenly spooked by a creepy man named Michael, who works as a guard there. Michael lets the group inside, and begins giving them a tour of the place. He talks about a puppet named Marionette, who coordinated the other animatronics using a wireless signal. Up next, Michael pulls back the stage's curtain, revealing animatronics named Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica covered in tarp. Lisa asks where Foxy is, so Michael explains that Foxy was part of a failed take-apart, and put back together attraction, and was never the same again. Moments later, Lisa suddenly begins hearing music, but Michael warns her that the place can play tricks on the imagination if they allow it. He suggests they move forward, but Lisa asks the others to go ahead, while she decides to explore on her own. She then follows the sound of the music, and at the same time, we see Rob wandering near a small river. He notices something strange about a bulb. And then all of a sudden, meanwhile, Lisa arrives at a room, where she notices a large gift box and, next to it, a music box playing on its own. She shuts the music box off, when all of a sudden, the large box opens by itself. And then, she sees the reanimated Marionette, who attacks her. Alex hears her screams and grows worried, but notices Michael smiling like a madman. Just then, he is attacked by Foxy, and killed. Elsewhere, Rob is still in the river, trying to turn on a flashlight, when he notices a small doll fall into the water. The boy is extremely confused, right when he is attacked by over a dozen animatronics, and the water soon turns red. Later, Michael heads downstairs, where he is shocked to see Lisa being possessed by Marionette. The possessed girl tries to attack him, but he manages to run out of the building just in time, and says, "Welcome back, Charlotte," revealing that it is all her doing. The next morning, Vanessa is sweating profusely at her spinning class, when she is suddenly haunted by memories of her father. The terrified woman rushes to the changing room, only to be startled by a man and holds him at gunpoint, but she soon realizes her mistake. That night, while Abby is sleeping, she hears someone speaking through the Faz Talker, and recognizes it as her animatronic friend, Chica, who is asking for help. Abby asks where they are, and Chica says they will guide her the way, and asks her to come find them. With this, Abby sneaks out alone, and eventually arrives at the original Freddy's Pizzeria. She finds the place completely empty, until Chica finally appears, and the two are overjoyed to see each other after so long. Abby notices that Chica's body looks different now, and asks what help she needs. Chica says she will reveal that later, but what matters for now is that they are together again. The next morning, Vanessa arrives at Mike's house, where Abby proudly shows her science project. She says that Chica helped her, and Freddy tried too, but his fingers were too fat. This confuses Vanessa, but when Abby reveals where she went last night, the woman is left shocked and terrified. Later, Vanessa privately speaks with Mike, and tells him about how Abby met Freddy and Chica. But he doesn't take it seriously since Abby is just a kid, and tends to imagine lots of things. Instead, he is angry with Vanessa, as he called the number on the flyer he found outside the pizzeria. It was left by Charlotte's dad, who told him about his daughter, and his best friend, Vanessa. Mike feels deeply upset that Vanessa never mentioned the other child victims, and kept it a secret. This leads to an argument, which ends when a furious Vanessa storms off. Next, Vanessa goes to the original pizzeria, and directly speaks to Charlotte, saying that she will not let her hurt anyone else. Charlotte also responds through the speakers, and Vanessa explains that she has put in place a perimeter blockage that prevents her, and all the animatronics from leaving. However, Charlotte tells her that there is no problem, since she has found a new friend who will help her, referring to Abby. She then warns Vanessa to stay out of her way, before suddenly lunging to attack her. The scene then cuts to the science fair, where Abby meets with Professor Berg, and shows him her creation. However, the cruel professor isn't happy to see it, so he destroys her robot, and pretends it was an accident. This completely breaks the poor girl's heart, so she rushes to the pizzeria again. She tearfully hugs Chica, explaining how her teacher destroyed her science project, so Chica promises to be her science project, which makes Abby excited. Next, Chica takes her to the control room, where she explains that Abby needs to enter a secret code, which will allow them to leave. Elsewhere, a tied-up Vanessa is watching everything on the CCTV, and Charlotte threatens to kill Abby if Vanessa doesn't give the code. And so, Vanessa reluctantly begins telling the code, during which Charlotte wirelessly controls Chica, and passes the number to Abby. After typing the code, the perimeter is finally unlocked, and all the animatronics there are excited to be free. Abby decides to take Chica to the science fair, but since she only has her bicycle, they scare a taxi driver, and force him to take them to the school. Elsewhere, Mike goes to meet Charlotte's dad, Henry, to look for answers about his daughter's death. Henry explains that while authorities had ruled Charlotte's death an accident, he finally learned the truth when they discovered that William had killed several other children as well. Mike then goes through old newspapers, and notices a small river in the original pizzeria, and he is shocked to realize that it matches a drawing made by Abby this morning. Henry reveals that this attraction only exists in the original Freddy's, and no other branch has it. This makes Mike very worried, so he calls Abby's school, and learns that there was an incident and she left. Panicked, Mike prepares to leave, so Henry hands him the music box that used to put Charlotte to sleep. He asks Mike to leave it for her if he goes back there, to which the latter agrees. Without wasting any time, Mike heads to the original pizzeria, where he comes across the broken prototypes of the animatronics, which don't work. Meanwhile, at the school, Abby shows Chica to everyone, and they are all amazed by her creation. But Professor Berg suspects there's someone inside the mechanical suit, so he insults Abby harshly, and tells her to get out. This makes Abby very sad, so Chica says she will talk to the professor to understand what's going on in his head. Later, Professor Berg is alone in the hallway, when he hears a noise coming from a room and cautiously approaches. And then this happens. The terrified man pleads desperately for mercy, but Chica shows no concern. With terrifying strength, she lifts him off the ground, and crushes his head with her big hands. Meanwhile, Mike is wandering through the pizzeria, when he finds Vanessa tied up by her hands and feet. He helps free her, and she informs him that all the animatronics left with Abby, and that Charlotte is behind everything. They both head to the control room, during which Vanessa explains that there is only one ghost here, Charlotte, who is inside the marionette. It turns out a music box used to put her to sleep, and keep her under control, but since Lisa turned the music off, it awakened Charlotte. Later, Vanessa opens the computer, as she has a tracker on the animatronics, and is trying to connect with it. She tells Mike all these animatronics are being wirelessly controlled by the marionette, to carry out Charlotte's orders. It turns out that even though William killed Charlotte, the girl doesn't blame him. Instead, she blames all the parents who didn't help, and she might go after them. Mike thus tells her that he will stay to work on tracking them, while he asks her to look for Abby in the meantime. The scene then cuts to Fazfest, where Freddy is walking among the public, but people think it's just a costume. Meanwhile, at the school, Abby is very happy as she wins the science fair contest with Chica by her side. Elsewhere, Mike manages to track Freddy's location, but unfortunately, Chica receives a security alert, and activates the animatronics in the pizzeria, which are only prototypes. As the prototypes wake up, Mike calls Vanessa to let her know Freddy's location, and she starts heading there. But then, while Vanessa is driving,
holy shit!
she is attacked by Foxy, and this causes Vanessa to lose control of the vehicle and crash into the roadside. The animatronic then tries to grab her, but Vanessa speeds away at full force. At the same time, Freddy approaches an old couple, and begins accusing them of leaving Charlotte to die years ago. The couple is confused and terrified, and before Freddy can hurt them, Vanessa shows up in her car, and she slams on her brakes, launching Foxy through the house window and temporarily defeating him. Before Freddy can come after them, Charlotte urges the couple to get in her car so they can flee. On the other hand, Bonnie enters a home, and begins bonding with a little girl. She then says she will talk to her mother, and heads to the kitchen, where a woman is working. Back at the pizzeria, an entity called Balloon Boy appears, but Mike tears his head off and throws him down the hall. Soon, he is approached by several prototypes, so the desperate man rushes to the computer and tries to deactivate the animatronics. Elsewhere, Bonnie is about to attack the woman, right when the little girl arrives and begs her to stop. But Bonnie refuses to show mercy, and raises her weapon, right when Mike successfully shuts down the signal, and disables all the animatronics. Moments later, Mike informs Vanessa that all of them are deactivated, which means they're safe. But Mike's eyes widen in horror when he notices that one of them is still active, and it is at his address. Elsewhere, we see Chica, who carries an exhausted Abby to her bed before starting to shut down, which makes her glitch. Eventually, Chica's chest breaks open, revealing the dangerous marionette inside. Meanwhile, a desperate Mike heads to Freddy's, where he once worked. He asks the souls of the kidnapped children for help, since Abby always considered them as her friends. Vanessa, on the other hand, enters Henry's house, and encounters a possessed Abby. Vanessa tries to hide, but Charlotte eventually finds her, which leads to an intense fight between them. Vanessa begs her to release innocent Abby, but Charlotte refuses and tries to kill her. Fortunately, Mike arrives just in time, and uses the music box to control Charlotte, who finally releases Abby. However, their relief is cut short, when all awakened animatronics surround them, destroying everything in their path. At this point, the real mastermind, Michael, emerges, and greets Vanessa by calling her sister. This shocks Mike, because Vanessa never mentioned that she has a psychopathic brother. Michael then explains that he is there to continue his father's legacy, and urges his sister to join. He states that Fazfest provides the perfect cover, and by dawn, half of the townspeople will be dead. When Vanessa refuses to take his side, Michael orders the animatronics to break their bones, and crush them. However, in a shocking twist, the spirits of the children arrive in their original animatronic forms, and begin destroying the toy versions. This terrifies Michael, who attempts to flee, but is stopped by Jeremiah outside the house. After destroying all the villainous toys, the original animatronics start to break down, as they were never meant to leave the pizzeria. Abby is very distraught to see her friends go, but she is at least relieved they will finally go to heaven. A ghost boy then informs Mike that they have been keeping William's body locked inside a room, but once they go to heaven, they will no longer be able to hold him at bay. He states that the entity will eventually emerge, and will be stronger than before. Moments later, Jeremiah arrives, wondering what happened, and says that they must leave. Mike feels betrayed by Vanessa, and tells her to stay away, since he cannot trust her anymore, which breaks her heart. The movie ends as Vanessa tries to leave, but is shockingly possessed by Charlotte, signaling that the true horror has only just begun.